We're looking at a Japanese racehorse named Umamusume, a horse who is remembered purely for the rival he could never quite defeat.
Which is such a fascinating subversion of how we usually process sports history, right?
Yeah.
Because, usually history is entirely written by the victors, the ones holding the goal.
Champions, yeah.
Right. But Umamusume Shion completely flips that script. He literally never won a G1 race.
Mm-hmm.
His legacy in Japanese racing is practically immortal. And that is entirely because he spent his whole life locked in this relentless, just agonizing chase of a generational legend, a horse known as the Golden Tyrant, Orfevre.
Okay, let's unpack this.
He was born on April 10th, 2008, at the very prestigious Northern Farm up in Hokkaido. His sire was Heart's Cry, who was a legendary horse in his own right, mostly because Heart's Cry was the one who famously defeated the supposedly invincible Deep Impact back in 2005.
Wow, okay, so he's got giant Slayer blood right from the start.
Literally. And then you add to that a maternal grandsire in Stormbird.
Yeah.
He was owned through a micro-syndicate called the Wynn Racing Club.
Mm-hmm.
And the math behind this is just brilliant.
It really is. So they divided his ownership into 400 shares, and each share was priced at 45,000 yen.
Which, if you do the math, that values the whole horse at a very reasonable 18 million yen. The micro-syndicate structure made him, in the truest, most literal sense, a people's horse.
Yeah.
Everyday hobbyists, office workers, students, they had a real financial and emotional stake in his career.
Right.
When he stepped onto the track, they weren't just watching a horse race. They were watching their horse race.
And they gave him a name that perfectly captured how he moved on the track, right? Variation, which comes from a ballet term for a solo dance performance.
Which is incredibly fitting because of the very specific kind of wild strategy he used on the track.
Yeah, tell us about that strategy because it was stressful to even read about.
It was. His racing style was highly unorthodox and just wildly dramatic. Instead of breaking early and fighting for lead like most horses do, he would intentionally drop all the way to the back of the pack.
But the risk is immense. If you're hanging out at the very back and the pack in front of you doesn't part at the exact right second, you're completely boxed in behind a wall of tired horses, and all that saved energy is totally useless.
Yeah, that's the paradox of his whole career. He relied on this breathtaking solo charge down the final stretch. A literal solo dance from the back of the field.
Right.
It required immense patience and this explosive burst of speed at the absolute last second. It was thrilling to watch, but man, it left zero room for error.
Which brings us to the first real theme of his story, I think. The psychological cost of the chase. Because every hero needs an epic quest, and for Umamusume, that quest was the Japanese classics.
But navigating that road proved to be incredibly punishing.
Yeah, he was trained by Masahiro Matsunaga, right? A former jockey who actually rode another famously beloved runner-up horse named Nice Nature.
That's right. And initially, things actually looked pretty promising.
Mm-hmm.
When Variation won his debut, and then the Nojikiku Stakes. But as the competition stiffened on the trail to the classics, the reality of that risky running style caught up with him.
Because you can't always thread the needle.
Exactly. He finished 4th in the Radio Nikkei, 4th again in the Kisaragi Show, and 7th in the Yayoi Show.
So all of those are essentially qualifying races, right?
Yeah.
And because he struggled there, his team had to completely abandon their hopes of entering the Satsuki Show, which is the 2,000-meter first leg of the Japanese Triple Crown.
Yeah, they had to pivot entirely. So they entered him into the Ioba Show, which is a secondary trial race, just to punch his ticket to the Japanese Derby.
Okay.
And he won it, which secured his spot. But the stage for that Derby, it was grueling.
Grueling is an understatement. It sounds like a scene out of a gritty war movie.
Okay.
We are at the Tokyo racecourse. Heavy rain has turned the dirt and turf into a literal muddy battlefield.
Total slot.
Yeah. And Umamusume goes into the biggest race of his life as a massive underdog. He's the 10th favorite, with veteran jockey Katsumi Ando in the saddle. Nobody expects anything from him. While Umamusume, true to his style, is dead last, tracking the field quietly, just waiting.
And then the final stretch. He charged down the outside and ran the final 600 meters in a blazing 34.7 seconds.
That is insane.
It's unbelievable. To generate that kind of unnatural torque, breaking the mud suction at that speed is nearly impossible. But he devoured the entire field, crossing the finish line 7 lengths ahead of the main pack.
7 lengths in those conditions. That's just not supposed to happen.
It's really not. In any normal year, if you run 600 meters in 34.7 seconds in deep mud, and beat 16 elite horses by 7 lengths. You don't just win the Derby.
No.
You are immediately crowned a generational legend. The race is over, and your legacy is cemented in stone.
But there was a ghost on the track.
Yeah. Umamusume ran the perfect race. He didn't fail. He just had the profound misfortune of peaking at the exact same moment in history as an untouchable freak of nature.
Orfevre.
Because despite destroying the field, he looked up and Orfevre was still 1 3/4 lengths ahead of him.
That is the ultimate psychological heartbreak. You run the race of your life, you obliterate 99% of your competition, and the tyrant is still sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a one-off. This became the defining pattern of his entire life.
Right. Because the Triple Crown is this grueling series of races designed to test every facet of a horse's endurance and speed. After the Derby, they met again in the autumn at the Kobe Shimbun High.
And what happened?
Win Variation chased Orfevre down, finishing second by 2.5 lengths. Then came the Kika Show, the 3,000-meter final leg of the Triple Crown. Win Variation launched his powerful closing run, recorded the fastest finishing time of the entire race, and still finished second.
He just couldn't catch him.
No. He came closer than any other horse in his generation to challenging the Triple Crown champion. But being the closest just meant he had a front-row seat to Orfevre's terrifying dominance.
Which really transitions us from the psychological cost to the physical cost. Because running at your absolute physical limit, like draining the tank, fighting through mud, constantly pushing for that massive final burst of speed, it eventually breaks a body down.
It has to.
You can't run at 110% capacity forever without something snapping.
And that snap happened in his 4-year-old season. The year started with high hopes, actually. In the Tenno Show Spring, which is a grueling 3,200-meter marathon, Orfevre unexpectedly faltered.
He finally showed a weakness.
Yeah, he ran poorly. The door was finally wide open for Win Variation to claim his G1 title.
But sports are cruel.
So cruel.
An outsider horse named Beat Black managed to escape on an early lead and just completely stole the race. Win Variation finished third.
And after that, at the Takarazuka Kinnan, Orfevre returned to form and won, with Win Variation finishing fourth. And immediately following that race, the physical toll caught up. He suffered a massive tendon injury.
The source material says this forced him off the track for a year and a half. A year and a half in professional horse racing is an absolute eternity. Entire generations of horses come and go in 18 months.
They really do.
How does a horse recover from a major structural tear, sit idle for that long, and somehow retain the sheer competitive willpower to jump right back into Grade 1 racing against the very horse that traumatized him?
Well, it is exceptionally rare. For most horses, a tendon injury of that magnitude is a career-ending death knell. They're retired immediately.
Right.
But Win Variation's camp refused to give up, and more importantly, the horse refused to give up. He endured a brutal rehabilitation and finally returned in the autumn of 2013.
Wow.
He slowly regained his form, securing a third-place finish in the Kinko Show, which gave his team the confidence to enter him into the 2013 Arima Kinnan.
And the context of this specific race is just incredibly cinematic. It was highly publicized because everyone in the country knew it was Orfevre's final race before retiring.
Yeah, this 2013 Arima Kinnan wasn't just a competition for Win Variation, it was a declaration of identity. Orfevre did exactly what you'd expect. He dominated his farewell race, winning by 8 massive lengths.
Just a ridiculous margin.
But right behind him, fighting through the pack, surging past the new massive fan-favorite Gold Ship, was Win Variation.
Securing second place. Again. Even after 18 months off, even with a surgically repaired leg, he refused to let anyone else be the runner-up to Orfevre.
That's the poetry of it, right? He was confirming his role as Orfevre's definitive shadow. He essentially returned just to say, I am the only one allowed to be right behind you.
But with Orfevre officially retired after that race, the Golden Tyrant had vacated the throne. For the first time in his entire life, the stage was totally clear. The solo dancer finally had the spotlight all to himself.
And he seized it. Initially, at least. In his 6-year-old season, he found triumph again. He won the Nikki Show with a brilliant vintage performance, launching that signature sweeping run from the back of the pack.
So he still had it.
He still had it. And the momentum was fully building toward the Tenno Spring, the G1 title he had been hunting his entire life.
The build-up to this specific race was total chaos, though. If you look at the sources, there were suspensions, injuries, jockey changes left and right. Ultimately, Kishiro Teke takes the reins, the race goes off, they round the final corner, the throne is completely empty, and Win Bariashian is battling fiercely, stride for agonizing stride, with the defending champion Phenomena.
It was a grueling neck-and-neck fight all the way to the wire.
And
when Variashian loses,
man,
by just a neck, once again, he finishes second.
it is agonizing to read. It's almost like the universe decreed, no, this is your role in the play and you cannot change the script.
And fulfilling that role took its absolute final toll the following year, at age 7. He showed flashes of yet another revival, getting another runner-up finish in the Nikki Show. But during his final attempt at the Tenno Spring, tragedy struck again.
The tendon.
Yeah, the sheer force required for his signature closing bursts finally pushed his legs past their breaking point. He suffered a second catastrophic tendon injury. And that was the definitive end. He was forced into retirement.
Looking at his final career statistics, it paints such a complex picture, 23 starts, 4 wins, 0 G1 wins. But here's the wild part. Despite never winning the ultimate prize, he amassed over 570 million yen in prize money.
It's a huge sum.
He actually ranked third in his entire generation for earnings, only behind Orfevre and the legendary sprinter Lord Kanaloa. They are deeply beloved by the crew, which in this case is the fans who bought those 45,000 yen micro-syndicate shares, and they quietly make millions of dollars while the A-listers take all the intense pressure and the glory. Win Bariashian was the ultimate blue-collar character actor of Japanese racing.
That framing is remarkably accurate, and his post-racing life reflects that quiet, hard-working legacy perfectly. When a horse with 0 G1 wins and 2 blown tendons retires, the industry standard is to quietly transition them into a riding horse.
Right.
But instead, Win Bariashian was sent to Aomori to begin a new career as a stallion.
Wait, Aomori, I thought you said earlier that all the elite breeding, places like Northern Farm, happens in Hokkaido.
It does.
If he earned 500 million yen and had this massive cult following, why send him to a regional outpost instead of keeping him in the center of the industry?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes perfect sense for his legacy. The Japanese breeding industry is massively concentrated in Hokkaido, dominated by giant, heavily funded corporate breeding conglomerates.
Very monopolized.
Very. If he stayed in Hokkaido, he would have been swallowed up by the machine, just another minor stallion overshadowed by the G1 winners. But by going to Aomori, he became the anchor for a quiet regional industry. He carries the hopes and the economy of smaller independent breeders.
Oh, wow. So he remained the people's horse, just in a different way?
Precisely. And while his offspring haven't dominated the G1 circuit just yet, they're inheriting his grit. Horses like Dos Hearts and Hayate Fukunusuke, who actually fought his way into the 2024 Kika Show. Win Bariashian's relentless underdog spirit is quite literally being passed down to the next generation, far away from the blinding lights of Hokkaido.
So what does this all mean? When we look back at the entirety of Win Bariashian's life, from the accessible micro-syndicate shares to the physics-defying 34.7-second charge through the mud, the agonizing tendon snaps, and his quiet regional stud duties in Aomori, he is living proof that a legacy isn't solely defined by the trophies you lift.
No, not at all.
It is defined by the resilience you show and the caliber of the giants you dare to chase.
He is the rival who, despite every physical and psychological barrier, simply never stopped chasing.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.